Hey, good morning, folks. I just wanted to come this morning. I had something spin on my mind for a couple of days, and actually, as a part of a comment that I made to somebody else a couple of days back, I actually said that were kind of at their last straw, or they're at their final part that they almost didn't think they could take anymore. Um, I posed a question, and this goes back to what my wife went through and what all she stood through. Um, you know, I said, you know, was my wife's final straw when I left her the first time? Was my wife's final straw whenever I kept coming back and not being true about it? Was my wife's final straw when I couldn't be faithful and would turn away from her and be mean to her? Was my wife's final straw when I left again? Was my wife's final straw when it appeared I kept choosing other people over her? Was my wife's final straw when I got involved with drugs and left the house again? Was my wife's final straw when, even after being restored to God, I relapsed? Was my wife's final straw when she turned me into the local sheriff's department and had me arrested? My wife never got to a final straw. She kept standing with God. She felt at times like she was kind of at a final straw, but God would do something to prove that He wasn't done yet. And so I wanted to come right now to this morning and go ahead and make this. I figured it'd probably be kind of short, but we can't say that we have a final straw, or that we're putting a limit on things. Because if you're in this place of standing with God in hopes of a marriage ministry, then you're trying to put limits on a limitless God. You're trying to say, I will only withstand this much before I stop. What if God says, I never stop? And I just need you to trust me. I want to read 1 John 4:18. It says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves punishment. The one who fears is not perfected in love. And the word there, perfected, does not mean perfect as in no error. It means mature. So as I read it again, it says, there is no fear in love. Unconditional love has no fear. Unconditional love has no limits. Unconditional love has no boundaries that you set for just your own protection necessarily. Violence is one thing, but just everyday things, as far as even the prodigal spouse, that's not violent, that's not hurting you in some aspect. Love has nothing that has to do with putting limits on anything. Fear usually ends up put limits on things because you fear about what will happen, or what could possibly go on, how long something might take. Because fear involves punishment. Fear involves being hurt, wanting to hurt somebody back. And the one who fears is not matured in love. So this morning, or throughout the day and every day after, I just ask you to just pray. Pray on whatever it is that God is trying to show you in in knowing that if you're the image of God, if you're living the image of God, then you should not have any fear. And you should live that there's not limits or conditions. So anyway, I just wanted to come real quick. Well, thank you, and just may you have a blessed day. Amen.